Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Naila McKenzie, she, her. I serve as Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion here at AMC Global Media. I'm a Black woman of Japanese and African American descent, and today I have on a very fun patterned shirt jacket. It's red and white patterns, and also bright green hoop earrings. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that AMC Global Media's New York offices at 11 Penn are located on the traditional homelands of the Lenape people. The Lenape people have stewarded this land for generations, and we honor their enduring relationship to this region and recognize the continuing presence and contributions of Indigenous communities today. I'm delighted to welcome you to our conversation today, a ReelAbilities Filmmaker panel in recognition of Disability Pride Month. This conversation brings together several things that are deeply important to us here at AMC. Celebrating the creativity and contributions of disabled storytellers, increasing visibility for authentic representation in television and film, and creating opportunities for our employees to engage directly with artists whose work is helping shape the future of film and media. Today's program is part of Future of Film, AMC Global Media's award-winning employee-led initiative that partners with film festivals and industry organizations to help elevate emerging and underrepresented filmmakers and expand access to diverse stories and perspectives. We're especially proud of our ongoing partnership with ReelAbilities and grateful for the opportunity to bring this collection of short films to audiences through AMC Plus and Sundance Now. I also want to recognize AVID, our business employee resource group focused on disability inclusion and advocacy. Their ongoing leadership helps foster conversations like the one we're having today, learning opportunities, and community throughout the year at AMC Global Media, and we're grateful for their partnership and contributions to this space. At a time when representation matters more than ever, storytelling has the power to challenge assumptions, to build understanding, and to help people see themselves and truly see one another in new ways. That's exactly what today's conversation is designed to do. Thank you to our partners at ReelAbilities, to the filmmakers joining us today, and to everyone taking time out of your day to be part of this event or view this event. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Laura Marcus, from Editorial and Marketing Optimization, who also serves as co-chair of our Hispanic Latinx Business Employee Resource Group, VOCES. Laura's going to guide today's discussion. And with that, Laura, I turn it over to you.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with ReelAbilities and these incredible filmmakers to not only highlight the relationship between AMC Global Media and ReelAbilities, but also to put the spotlight on these filmmakers and the stories that they're telling. Before we start, I'd like to introduce Isaac Zablocki, co-founder and CEO of ReelAbilities. Isaac is the director of film programs at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. He attended film school at Columbia University and went on to work at Miramax Films. Previously, he produced and directed feature films and developed film educational programs for the Board of Education. Since 2004, he's been developing film programs at the JCC, including the Israel Film Center. And beyond ReelAbilities, he programs multiple film festivals annually, including the acclaimed Other Israel Film Festival about Arab and minority populations in Israel. I'll turn it over to him now to tell you a little bit more about ReelAbilities and the work that they do.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Isaac Zablocki, as mentioned, and we're really honored to continue this relationship with AMC Global and to partner with you guys on this amazing event. We're really excited that AMC is helping elevate these voices and taking these films to the next level by sharing them with the public and raising viewership towards films that fit everything that ReelAbilities believes in, which are all the things that were mentioned here before in terms of authentic representation and giving people access to news stories that show disability in new light like never before. ReelAbilities is proud to be a leader in this field and to be a part of a mission that is really creating a revolution for disability inclusion in film and helping share these voices boldly and proudly and as far as possible. So thank you all for watching these films and for taking the time, and please share these films as broadly as possible.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Isaac. Well, we have two filmmakers and an actor with us today. We've got Daisy Friedman with her film Unholy. We've got Shannon DeVito from the film A Stupid Man, and Mo Mahler with his film The Art of Weightlessness. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. And let's dive in. Um, each of your films tell unique stories and feature incredibly memorable characters, whether it's the Goldberg family in Unholy, Owen and Millie in A Stupid Man, or Bill Shannon in The Art of Weightlessness. Can you talk a little bit about how these characters and these stories came to fruition in your minds? What were the seeds that really started these creative journeys for each of you? Feel free to jump in. Everybody's pointing their fingers at Daisy.
Okay, I guess I'm doing it. I guess that's happening. Okay. Yeah, so this film is very much based on myself and my family. So really, I guess the seeds of the story came from us, came from me. I had a triple organ transplant, and I had that when I was quite young, and I don't really remember too much of that time in my life. Granted, you know, the being a transplant recipient is very complex, and you can deal with, you know, symptoms and things for a long time. But the bulk of my journey with that had been when I was so young, and I had sort of heard these kind of stories about myself as a young kid at a Seder at a family event, and the way in which my family kind of calibrated around that, and kind of, you know, had all throughout my childhood. And the film really started with there's a scene, I'm not going to give too much away, but there's a scene in the film when the grandmother confronts the lead character about this list that she used to have of all of the foods that she would eat one day when she could get the chance. And I, when I was young, was a feeding tube user and didn't eat, and had this list of all of the foods that I wanted to eat one day. And this story would come up over and over and over and over again every single time my grandparents and I went out to dinner without fail. And it was a lot. Like, we saw them a lot. And so they'd be like, "Do you remember when you used to have this list?" And it was like, "Yeah, no, for sure I do." And at a certain point, it went from being funny to being like quite offensive and like quite upsetting. And I don't totally know why. I think it was because maybe like at a certain point, it was sort of spun to be this story that I had less control over, and I realized how little control I had over my family's perception of me and my history with illness. And I think once that clicked as a 19, 20-year-old, I kind of couldn't get it out of my head, and it just really made me upset. So then I wrote a movie about it, because that was the way I felt like I could be cathartic. And yeah, you know, like it started grounded in my family and our relationship, and kind of grew into this completely other thing, other family dynamic.
Amazing.
I can maybe go next.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was first introduced to Bill Shannon. You know, my film is a documentary, so Bill Shannon's a real person. Bill and I first met. He was doing an artist in residency at Carnegie Mellon University. At the time, I was actually still with the Walt Disney Company, but Bill was interested in using motion capture to capture his performance technique on crutches, which he really developed from a young age. And you know, as a part of growing older, it's harder and harder to do these pretty athletic, skillful moves. You know, so capturing these in some sort of way that would capture the detail of the motion, he was really interested in. So we got connected for that reason, because I have a bit of expertise in motion capture processes. And when we started talking, I was interested in maybe doing something more for myself at the time, you know, like instead of kind of the corporate projects that we all have to work on, doing something more for myself, like just, you know, art for art's sake. And so I was really interested in the story, and we're exploring ideas. But when I heard kind of the path he traversed to become this world-renowned performer, I was like, oh, well, that would be the story I would want to tell for sure. So that was a very natural process with him. You know, Bill's a great storyteller himself, so we captured several hours of footage of him in various ways telling this story and kind of pieced it together that way.
Amazing.
Oh man, I definitely should not have gone last. You guys have the most deep, meaningful reasons. And I was like, I really like rom-coms, and it'd be really cool if I was in one. That's how it came about. And it was, we really wanted to create these characters who were just two people in a rom-com, and one of them happens to have disability because, something we noticed as like my friend is my production co-producer, and she and I have both noticed in this genre that we love so much is that I have never seen myself represented. And so it's something that we set out to kind of change. And so we just wrote this film, and it's quirky and fun, and we just hope it brings people joy. And I happen to be a disabled person in it. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a perfect segue. These stories feel incredibly grounded and honest, and I think that that's why they're so moving and relatable. What does authentic disability representation mean to each of you, and how do you know when a story is getting it right?
I can go first on this one. Yeah, I think that's tricky, right? And I try to approach storytelling not really from, like when you first start making films, you always want to like, oh, what's the moral of this thing? And try to work backwards from that. But I find that to be kind of a trick that can lead you down a road where you're just going to be pandering to the audience. And I don't think audiences want to be pandered to. So really finding some sort of unique identity that feels more authentic to the story you're telling is where I try to operate from. So rather than it, like Bill's story isn't really about like overcoming, right? Because he still has this hip problem, still hurts him. He still has to use his crutches, right? But his story is really about like this evolution he takes. So I really latched onto that. And that's not really a moral, but it allows the audience to kind of relate to it in their own way, and I think arrive at their own morals that they want to project onto the piece.
I mean, I think that, one thing that I've always kind of thought about in authentic representation of especially disability is that you always want, or in the past, it's always been represented as like these big, right, like you said, overcoming moments, or like just huge moments, whereas in reality, disability people just live lives, and they love, and they go out, and they just have these lives like everybody else. And I think that, like, if you can show a story that's just an authentic story that happens to have a disabled person also living it, I think it's a much more accurate representation of what people living with disabilities have. And I think that is something that is just not seen very often. It's always like about their disability, or about, this thing that we always have to draw attention to. And you're not ignoring it when you're doing a story like that, because the minute you put someone like me on screen, it's about a character with a disability, but you're also telling a story that isn't about the fact that, like, I happen to also be sitting down. Like, I think it's just about two people falling in love. You know what I mean? So I think that to me is a really accurate representation, and getting it right.
Yeah, that's great. That's very similar to what I was thinking, what Shannon just said, of like, I think something that I was thinking a lot about with Unholy is like a small moment, but a very like significant moment, or a moment that, like, in the life of a Jewish person, like occurs every year. Like, you're going to have Passover every year. probably, if that is your family's kind of tradition. But like, what does it mean to complicate it because of disability, and not in this like grandiose, like, oh no, what are we gonna do kind of way, but like really thinking about how something in the way that it is by nature is inaccessible in this way. Like, what if a character who isn't eating comes into a situation where everything is about food? Like, and that is about disability. Like, that is sort of the basis of the story, but it's also about feeling disconnected from your family and about feeling like there's no way into a piece of your tradition or a piece of your familial lineage that you can't access. And I think like thinking about a story that's authentic means that like it's both specific and universal. And if you can get to a story that is specific but also speaks to a greater truth about society, about family, about tradition, about religion, about whatever, like, you are doing it right because you're telling a story about the human experience. And that is authentic because we're all living the human experience. And just because my character like happens to have a disability, that is very relevant to the story, and like the whole story does hinge on it. But like, I think the most beautiful piece of feedback that we had gotten on the festival circuit was like, oh, I really see myself in this role because I'm queer. I really see myself in this role because I'm trans. And like, I really see myself in this role because whatever, I had an eating disorder in my childhood and Seder was really hard for me. Like, and to be able to have people put themselves in the shoes of my character, even though she's disabled, like, that is the best kind of feedback. And that like that authenticity that kind of rings true to the broader human experience feels like exactly the thing.
Well, let me validate you immediately, Daisy, because I'm telling you, I put myself right in her shoes because I've been at so many Seders where things get awkward around food. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very relatable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Daisy and Shannon, the cast for both of the films are just amazing. I said, my jaw dropped when Danny Bernstein graced my screen because I had seen him in Gypsy last year on Broadway. And I was equally as excited to see AMC alum Shannon DeVito as Millie because I absolutely loved her acerbic wit as Emma in the AMC original Lucky Hank. It's a small world. It's a small world. Can you talk a little bit about putting together these amazing casts for your projects? Because, I mean, just blown away. Incredible.
Oh, thanks. Well, I came as a package deal. I don't think they had a choice with me.
Okay. As you said, the vision included you. Yes.
Unfortunately, for everyone. But we found my scene partner is an incredible actor. We live in Philadelphia, and he is on every stage in Philly. He's just amazing. He's one of the best actors we have here and probably in the country. And we just felt really lucky that we had a mutual friend, and he had agreed to be part of it. So yes, if you need a guy to be in your movie, definitely call Mateo because he is incredible.
Yeah, and for us, it was a great journey. It was wild. I mean, we had kind of put the pieces together slowly. We first cast the mother, who is played by Laura Patinkin, who's absolutely wonderful. And when we cast her, we were like, hey, do you know anybody that would be interested in being the father? Because we had gone through a few people that were sort of similar types, and for various reasons, it didn't work out. A lot of folks don't do shorts at a certain point in their career. And Laura was like, I have an idea. I don't think it's going to pan out, but just try. And we were like, okay. And he was like, Danny Bernstein. And we were like, yes, we do. And so my producers emailed his manager, and we sat down and we read the script, and he loved it, and he was so kind, and he said, like, I reject about 90% of the projects that come on my desk, and I want to say yes to this. And I was like, oh my God, because he's incredible and he is amazing. And he was just so down for the cause. And I was surprised, not because of him, but just because I think we have this understanding of well-known actors to like turn their nose up at things like this, at shorts, at, you know, like I was 21 when I made the film, 20. And that's crazy that he said yes to that as well. Like, and that's not lost on me. And then so from there, we did an open call for the grandmother and for the aunt, but actually in the aunt, we found an incredible Broadway actor named Jill Abramovitz, because all three of them, Jill, Danny, and Laura, had done a production of Fiddler on the Roof together many, many years ago. So that's awesome. And that is on Jewish theater. And so they had all known each other, and it was wonderful. But Noah, it was really interesting. It was a really tough casting process, because I really wanted to find somebody who had short bowel syndrome, who had a feeding tube. And that's really hard. It's really, really hard to get someone who is a good actor and also has this lived experience. And there's a lot to talk about there. I think, you know, there's so much structural inaccessibility in terms of becoming an actor and auditioning and all these things. And the barrier of entry is so high. And we looked and looked and looked and looked and looked. And I was originally going to cast my friend who is chronically ill and has these issues. And she got sick and she got hospitalized about a month before we shot. And I was like, it's too risky. We can't do it. And so she ended up coming on all the Zoom auditions with me. And we interviewed a bunch of girls. Most of them were not chronically ill, were not disabled. And I felt really bad about it. I was very anxious. And then finally we found Olivia Nikkonen, who plays Noah, and, you know, she isn't disabled. And I was very kind of upset about it, because I knew she was so good and I knew I wanted her, but I was like, this feels bad. And my friend Sophie, the one who was chronically ill, we went on this callback together on Zoom, and she did her audition, and afterwards I was like, okay, well, what do you think? And my friend Sophie said, you know, like, I believe she's sick more than I believe I am, because she's such a good actor. And I was like, oh, okay, I think that is my pass. I think it's okay. I think we can do it. And we did, and it was good, and she's incredible. So it all worked out.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. I know, Mo, you spoke a little bit about sort of how you found out about Bill Shannon. But I was also just curious, like, are you into skateboarding, hip hop, breakdancing? Was that like part of the appeal? Was that element of the story? Just because I find that so interesting and so cool, especially because he was there at the beginning of both of those movements.
Yeah, and you know, his story is such an anomaly, because not only was he there, but he was there at the right time. And if you watch the film, you know, he's actually able to do these things for a small amount of time too, without any, you know, hindrance or crutches or anything like that. So those things just aligned in an amazing way to kind of set him on that trajectory. Yeah, I mean, I love music and hip hop, and I am not super athletic, so I'm not a skateboarder or a great break dancer or anything like that. But in some other life, I would love to be, you know.
Hey, you made it happen on the screen, right? Those motions were there. So that's your magic. You know, I think as independent filmmakers, obviously festivals like ReelAbilities like play a role in helping work to reach audiences and build community. I would imagine that there's a ton of mingling that happens at festivals and a lot of relationship building. You know, how does having your film in festivals like ReelAbilities really make a difference for you guys? Anybody?
Okay, I can go. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I think ReelAbilities was one of the first festivals that ever played any of my work, and I was so blown away by the warmth and safety of the community. I think it was around a time where I was very much coming into my own identity as identifying as a disabled person. And I just was blown away by everyone's work, everyone's artistry, like the ability to step into a room and be able to kind of feel settled in that everyone kind of had a common understanding of the content of the material, of what the goals were, like social impact wise. Like I feel like I had spent, granted not that much time before, but a little bit of time, like trying to push a boulder up a hill of trying to convince people why my work was important, and stepping into this space everyone already knew. And that was such a relief, and it was so exciting. And I felt like I got to bond with people, with other filmmakers more at ReelAbilities than I had kind of anywhere else. Because of that understanding, I always love to tell the story. Isaac's heard me say it a couple times. I met a filmmaker from Holland during my first ReelAbilities 3 years ago, and we still have monthly calls to check in about our creativity, about our projects that are happening. And he is one of the coolest, most awesome creative presences. His name is Sam Dykstra. Everyone should check him out. And yeah, and I think like the commitment to the filmmakers over and over throughout the years, even on the years where we don't have films in the festival, if we're in the New York area, like ReelAbilities takes care of their own. And I love it. I'm really, really grateful for it. And it's kind of a game changer.
Maybe just to add to that, I'm an animator, so I can go 6 years between films because these are all passion projects, and they take a while to make. And the landscape of film festivals has changed so much in my time as a filmmaker, and it's one of the things I've loved about working with ReelAbilities is it's an authentic group and community and audience, and it's very trustworthy in that regard. The community that you're engaging with. And so it's been really great from that perspective because, why do I make these films? I want to make these films to share with other people and show them, right? And to have a partner in that has been really excellent for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that they said is so true. I mean, ReelAbilities really does give this platform to a very, very, very talented people who were not always given a platform because of inaccessibility or just closed-mindedness or any of those things. And so it really has kind of given a voice to sometimes people who are left out. And so it's really, really cool to be part of. I mean, I think festivals as a whole are just a really great way to kind of be inspired by other people's work. I mean, even on this call are two people who I, watch their films, and I was just like, oh, I'm excited to make art again. And I think it's one of those moments where you can walk in and watch 6 films that make you think a little bit differently about the way that you do your work, and kind of something that you can take from it. And I think that part of festivals is so exciting to me.
Yeah. One last question for you all. How have audiences responded to your work in ways that surprised you or maybe stayed with you?
I'll go first. I think that Daisy said this earlier, is that people from different communities that you didn't really expect said they saw themselves in that role. And I think ours, because it's about love, I think people have seen themselves in that kind of relationship before. And it's really cool to kind of see all different types of people say they see themselves represented. And, I always think that it's just going to be like, oh, like another disabled person sees themselves represented, and that's great. And I'm so excited when that happens, but it's so cool to see it be a universal feeling. And I think that has been so surprising, but also just so rewarding, because it's like, oh, we created a universal story that has disability at the forefront, and it is possible, Hollywood. And so I think that that's a thing that we really strive for, and it's been very exciting to see.
It's a standoff between you two now. I see it. Who's gonna unmute first?
I'll go. I don't know. I feel like I did already kind of say that, what I had said before, similar to Shannon, just about the universality of the story. But I also think like the opposite of that is like I've had quite a few people be like, wow, I've like never seen a story like this. This is so like different, or like it's like really altered my perspective. And I think that's incredible, and I am so thrilled that that is the case. And B, I'm always a little surprised, because I'm always like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Like I didn't mean to do that. Like I didn't mean to make something for the first time. I just like shared a story from my life. And I think that speaks to the need for stories like this in a lot of ways, because like, and I'm sure all of us on this call can feel similarly, but like, I don't actually want to have that responsibility. Like, I would love it if other people were able to make stories about things like this, and people are, and that's so exciting. And I again, a reason why I love coming to ReelAbilities, but like, I want there to be a plethora of stories about chronic illness and Judaism and religion and all of these things, so that comment doesn't feel as weighty. And it's a beautiful comment, but it's always an interesting one, because it's never something I intended to do.
Yeah, I mean, like I said in the other answer, maybe that you try to approach the storytelling from a direction where people can kind of come away with their own meanings of what the story is about, or how it resonates with them. So I've definitely received a lot of feedback in that nature, and that's been great. And it's also really great to kind of like in my opinion, this story is kind of like a superhero story. It's like Bill's origin story as a superhero. So it's really great to kind of expose new audiences to his work, and his art, and not not just his movement style, but his artistic practice as well. So that's been really fun as well. So I encourage everyone to check out his portfolio, his body of work. It's fantastic. Especially we were talking earlier about these kind of like negotiations of like what it's like to uh, have disability, right? And the expectations that are thrust upon you. A lot of his work kind of explores these relationships in society, and it's really, really quite profound.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much to the filmmakers and Shannon, ReelAbilities, including COO Ravit Turjaman, for being such enthusiastic partners, and AMC's Future of Film. Thank you to everyone watching. You can watch the full ReelAbilities collection on AMC Plus. Let's keep engaging with disability inclusive content beyond Disability Pride Month. All right, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.